Hello family, my name is Jessica and I'm really excited to be part of the Cindy Dennis Ministries mini-series. And the reason why is because the book that we're reading is called Woman Evolved, Break Up Your Fears and Revolutionize Your Life by Sarah Jakes Roberts. Now, when this book was shared with me, I was excited and thrilled because it was actually on my reading list, and I also follow Sarah on social media. So it was a really thrill to get to read her book and also share some of my takeaways with you all. So Sarah is a professional speaker and candidly shares her personal testimonies to engage and empower women of faith. What I love about her latest book is that it really made me evaluate my thoughts and actions and some of the unique gifts that God has given me. So for example, have you ever been asked if you could meet anybody from your past, who will it be? Well, no lie, I've always said Eve from the Bible. Why? Well, that's because I want to ask her, girl, what were you thinking? And also to give her a piece of my mind. But I'm sure you remember Eve's story in Genesis. She had a conversation that changed her mind first, and then her appetite, and then eventually her actions. And it was pretty much a difficult path from there on out. Eve told the serpent that they were only allowed to eat the fruit from the tree in the garden, except for one, the tree in the middle. And all it took was that one question that changed her course forever. And the serpent said, "Did God really say you can't eat from any tree in the garden?" And yep, that's what it took. It took everything that God had intended for her. Not only that, but she also gave some to Adam, and he ate it too. So yes, I admit Eve has been vilified, time and time again. But honestly, though, who am I to even question Eve? I'm not absolved of never making a mistake. I've, been deceived before and did not always bring life and honor to God. And truthfully, I'm sure you could probably say the same as well. But oftentimes we don't think about the struggle that Eve faced after her encounter with the serpent. Rather, we always, criticize her for the actions that she took. But really, she did. She had to fight to fit in the world following that action. As my husband always says, every action always has a consequence, and you just have to be prepared for it. Well, she had to fight and, to look past her mistakes and to stay connected to God and others that are around her. And just think, when do you not become better? When you don't become better, whether it's because of low self-esteem or anxiety or depression or whatever it might be, the world can't become better. So Eve made a mistake, but she had, as Cindy always says, has that favorite word, perspective, right? So Eve had the perspective on how important it was to course correct. So in the book, Sarah talks about she's on this mission to rescue Eve. And because of that, Eve has been penalized for what she did and not recognized for how she showed up to fight back. So Sarah's book actually reminded me that, like Eve, we do not have to live defined by the past. If you think about it, you've got some Eve in you, as do I. And think about it this way. The serpent in the garden wasn't after Eve's appetite. If we really look back into the text, he was really after what she trusted in. And what she trusted in was God's vision for her life. And God's power in her life began to dissolve the moment Eve even started questioning God's plan for her life. So one of the things that Sarah asks the reader to remember back in your life, what was the first time your truth was uprooted? Can you remember, when you felt no longer safe or loved or wanted? Maybe you weren't really liked, or you felt as though you weren't good enough or more, beautiful enough. Can you remember how you questioned yourself and others might have questioned you? Well, Sarah reminds us that our thoughts have two origins. They're either birthed from fear or from faith. And faith demands that we draw on courage where we aren't really sure of the process, that we even possess it. Whereas fear, on the other hand, pretends to keep us safe. So think about it this way. If you pretend enough that, if you don't do something or go a certain way, then you'll be safe, right? Well, ultimately, your thoughts control your actions. And that is why it's important to determine which thoughts are worthy of taking up real estate in our minds. So let me ask you this. What do you do when fear and faith speak to you at the same time? I'll say it again. What do you do, when fear and faith speak to you at the same time? Well, I hope you didn't say nothing, because that's unfortunate. And a coworker of mine actually the other day said, indecision is still a decision, which was mind-blowing. One, because we were on a management call, and two, because there's actually truth to that. And sometimes, we think duality of fear and faith are normal, but if we live like this, we will always be conflicted and stuck. But I'm sure you've tried to grow a plant once before. Kind of switching subjects here. But in the book, Sarah talks about seeds. So here we go. So I'm sure you've tried to grow a plant once before, right? Maybe it was whether you were a kid in school or at work. You're that one office mate that has plants all over. Guilty as charged. Or, growing up, actually, my family and I, we participated in a community garden, which was actually pretty fun. So in order to plant something, that there are certain things that should be considered, like the type of seed, the nutrients, the environment, time, and when tended properly, those seeds take root. So think of it this way. Our thoughts are like a seed and ultimately produce the fruit or our actions. So the process from thought to seed to fruit is actually a cycle. Your thoughts and maybe even your actions, but have you ever considered your environment and how it's contributed to your thoughts and actions, which plays a pretty important role. So as you've seen in some of my previous videos, I love to share a good activity. And in Sarah's book, she has these sections called Working It Out activities. So I'm gonna take you along my little journey as I did one of my Working It Out activities. So grab a piece of paper and a pen, or if you're creative like me, go ahead and pause the video, grab yourself some markers and crayons, color pencils. I won't judge you. And now, to the best of your ability, draw 2 trees. So I'm gonna go ahead and share mine with you. So here's 2 trees. On one tree, write the characteristics and virtues of your family. Now this can also include your friendships as well, but include characteristics that you value. Words like trust or forgiveness, connection, straightforwardness, some of those might come to your mind. Now on the second tree here, I want you to think about some areas where bitter fruit or no fruit has become the norm. So that might be like lies or gossip or envy, or bitterness itself might also be a norm. So go ahead and think of some of those areas too. So once you finish, examine your fruit and prayerfully go before God and remember what John 15:1-2 tells us. It says, I am the true vine and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does not bear fruit, he prunes it so that way it will be even more fruitful. So I thought that was a very nice activity, but all throughout the book, she has tons of other activities and things for you to work it out. If you can't tell, I highly recommend this book, ladies or men who might want to share it with their wife or lady friend. Chapter 5 was by far my favorite to read. It was called Work the Wait, not Worth It. Work the Wait. And it has a lot of great points. So for example, I'm not gonna share too much about it, but there's one section titled Be Purposeful, and I absolutely loved it because it's actually something my husband and I have committed to recently. We're being more intentional with our thoughts and our actions to be purposeful. So last Bible verse of the evening is Galatians 5:22-23. It gives us perspective on the kind of fruit that reflects the Spirit of God. It says, be the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So keep in mind, the serpent robbed Eve of her knowledge, but could not keep her from acquiring knowledge. So as Sarah says in her book, Eve could have stayed planted in the field of her disappointment and shame, but she evolved. hence the title. And as a refresher, evolve means to develop gradually, especially from a simple or more complex form. So how can we embody the definition of evolving? Well, in her book, Sarah said that her experience with God has taught her that the more she activates what she knows, the more she's able to give her vision and clarity for the more he, being God, is able to give her vision and clarity for the unknown. Pretty powerful, right? Well, I pray that God removes distractions from your life as you cultivate your seeds, and I pray that you abandon the decisions of the past and become intentional with your actions of tomorrow. So thank you for your time and for letting me share some key takeaways from the book. Again, it's called Woman Evolve, Break Up With Your Fears and Revolutionize Your Life by Sarah Jakes Roberts. I hope you enjoyed this message.